Hi everyone, and welcome back to our channel, or welcome to our channel if you're new here. In today's video, we'll be showing you how to make this delicious butterflap. So butterflap is basically a pastry that you can use in pretty much anything. You can make it like a sandwich, you can use it with a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, and you can add any sorts of ingredients on top to garnish it the way you'd like, but we use cheese for this recipe. It's really spongy and it's just a really great breakfast snack. So if you'd like to see how to make this, then please keep on watching. Alright, so we're getting straight into it. So you're going to need 3.5 cups of flour. You're also going to need half a teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of sugar, 1 pack of instant yeast, and 1/4 teaspoon of turmeric. Now the turmeric is optional. It gives it the nice yellowish color as well as a nice savory taste. You're also going to need 1/4 cup of warm water, 2 tablespoons of melted salt butter, or regular butter if you don't have salt butter, and 1 cup of milk. You're also going to need 2 tablespoons of regular not melted butter, and you'll see what we're using this for later on in the video. You'll also need shredded cheese, and of course this is garnishing, so you can use anything in the place of cheese if you don't want to use cheese. And of course, you're going to need a baking pan. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is take a large bowl and add in our 3.5 cups of flour. And then you're going to start adding in your ingredients. You're going to add in your sugar. You're also going to add in your salt. And we're adding that 1 pack of instant yeast. Okay, and then you're also going to mix all of this together. And you see we have our melted salt butter on the side there. You can use melted regular butter, as I mentioned earlier, but we find the salted butter does a better job of bringing out that nice flavor and of course the softness and moistness of the butterflap. Now we're adding in the melted salted butter. And we're using clean hands here and mixing all of this together. Now by all means you can use a spatula, but we find that it's a lot easier to mix things together with our hands. So we're just mixing that in, making sure that's all nicely cohesive and all together. And then we're going to start gradually adding in our milk. So you're going to take your 1 cup of milk and just start adding splashes of it, and then gradually working that in so that you can build up your dough. So we're just working that in here, and you'll see that gradually as we keep going, you start to see things forming, and then you can add more and more. So we're taking all the formed pieces of the dough and putting it aside in the bowl, and then putting more milk inside to completely mix all of that together. And you see now it's starting to form a shaggy dough. So now that we're done with the milk, you're going to start adding in some water as well. So we're adding this a little at a time just to build the dough up. You don't want to add all at once because you may not need all of that water to do it, and make sure you're using warm water to do this. And you see as we go along, it's starting to form very nicely. So we're again using a little more water here, and we want to make sure that there are no dusty bits left in the dough, if that makes sense. So we're starting to work that in, and you see everything is starting to clump together, and that's how you know your dough is slowly but surely coming together. Okay, so you see we're adding a little more water here because we still have a lot of bits that are not coming together and clumping to build one dough. So you see we're adding in the water there, and now we're starting to get where we want to be with the dough. So we're just kneading it together, making sure everything is all mixed in nicely. And then we're also taking some flour here, and what this does, it's gonna help pick up any of the excess pieces inside of the bowl, as well as get it off of your hands because it can get a little sticky. Okay, so we're finally at the end of our kneading process, and you can see that the dough is nice and fluffy, and it's cleaned out the bowl completely. As you can see, it's almost shining. So we're just kneading that a little more. You'll know once you start feeling the dough, it'll feel very absorbent and buoyancy. It has a lot of buoyancy to it. So now that we have that dough ready, we're going to take your half a teaspoon of butter, regular room temperature butter, and you're going to mold that into the dough, and this is going to help with the softness of the dough as well as the absorbency and how moist it's going to be. So we're just patting that down. You see here we're getting it ready to sit, so we're going to let this sit covered with a towel for about 45 minutes until you start to see it rise. You're going to see, because of the instant yeast, it's going to rise fairly quickly, so we're going to come back once that's completed. Alright, so you can see our dough significantly has risen compared to where it was earlier in the video. So now that we have that ready, we're going to start making our individual butterflaps. So you can see how nice and soft it is. So we're taking some flour and we're just adding that on there, and again, the flour is going to make it a lot easier for us to work with the dough. So we're just taking our hands and rolling this straight out. You're going to roll this out like a rolled out long piece that we can cut into sections. So it doesn't have to be perfect. You can see there are some like divots here and there, but it's not a big deal. And then we're just slicing this down into even sections, and you see how much the dough has actually risen. When you cut through it, it just keeps bouncing back up. So we're cutting that into even sections, and you'll see from the even sections we're taking them and just molding them into round circular pieces. So they don't have to be perfect. Some can be bigger, some can be smaller, but you want to try to get them as close to the same size of each other as possible. And from there you're just molding them into round sections, and you see we're just speeding that up here, and you can see the dough makes quite a few of them, so you'll have a lot from the measurements that we're working with in this recipe. If you have any extra pieces, as you can see here, we're just adding them straight in, and you don't need to worry about that too much because you are going to end up rolling it out. So now we're taking some flour on our clean surface, and again, this is going to help us when we are working with the dough. So from here we are taking the dough and flattening it out, and then we're going to take our rolling pin and just flatten that out as well. So you see, I'm just making sure that the sections are completely closed up, and they don't have to be perfect. Once again, you're just rolling this straight out, making it flat. Should be about less than an inch of thickness there, and from then onwards you're going to take some of that butter, and then you're going to, in the words of Butterflap, you're going to mash the butter all the way around the dough, and then you're going to fold it in half, kind of like a taco. And then from there you're going to take some more of that butter, and you're just going to lather that on as well. And what this layering process does is that when it's in the oven, it does rise even higher, and then it also makes a little crevice for you to put things inside. So you'll see here that we are closing it off with a fork, and you're going to close off all the sides, kind of like as if you were making a pastry, and you're then going to fold it again. So it's now a triangle, and you're going to completely close off that area once again. And if you want it to be completely closed off, you can also do the other side as well. And you'll see once we're finished with it, it's going to look a lot different than it does now. So from there, you're going to take a little bit of that flour, and you're going to make sure that your pan is lined with that as well as some parchment paper to make sure nothing sticks to the pan. And you're going to lay that guy down. And now we're just going to speed up the process and show you the same thing again. So we're doing it again with the pieces of dough, but you can see, to speed up the process, you can roll out more than one, so that you can take that piece of butter and just rub it all over all three of them, and that just speeds up the process, especially if you're making a large quantity of them. So we're doing the same process again, folding them and closing off the edges, and then putting them down into the pan. And we're going to repeat this for the rest of them, and we'll be right back once they're all done. And then you'll want to leave this to sit for another 15 minutes. So after 15 minutes, you can see that they have risen significantly. So from here on, you're going to take your butter, and again, you're going to add that butter on there, and you'll see that, of course, because it's called Butterflap, there's a lot of butter in this. So this is more of an indulgent treat, not really the healthiest, but it's very delicious. So we're taking some water and we're adding in that turmeric powder. So we want to make sure it's diluted quite a bit so that it's kind of like a watery paste so that we can put it on top of there. And we're just lathering that on each one of them. And this is going to give it a nice color as well as add a little bit of a savory taste to it. Now, of course, like I mentioned, you can substitute this for anything that you'd like to use on top. You can turn it into a sweet pastry. You can make it even more savory. You can make it with all kinds of different things. So once those are all set up, we are going to put that in the oven, and this is going to bake at 350 degrees Fahrenheit on a convectional oven for about 20 minutes. Now, after 15 minutes, make sure to take out the butterflaps from the oven, and if you are adding any garnishes, especially if it's cheese, we would say not to put the cheese on in the beginning, but after 15 minutes, put the cheese on there, and then you're going to stick it back into the oven for another 5 minutes. That's just so that the cheese doesn't burn on the top, and it's just nice and cheesy and melted instead of dried up and burnt if you had it from the beginning of when it was baking. So your 5-minute mark would be the opportune time to put anything that you'd like to put on it before sticking it back into the oven for another 5 minutes. So we're putting this back into the oven, and you'll see that now, after 5 minutes, your butterflaps are done and the cheese is nice and gooey, nothing is burnt or dried up. And we're just poking a toothpick in to make sure that there's no batter on the toothpick. If there was, then we would know it would need to go in for a little longer. But 20 minutes is a pretty good time for these to cook. So that is today's recipe completed. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is more of something that you can use with other foods. We like to have it with like deli meats, or making a vegetable sandwich with it. It's really nice too because it's eggless, so that's the great thing about it. And from there you can also put all kinds of things in it. You can even just break it apart and have it with tea or coffee. It's just a really versatile pastry that you can use with anything. So we really hope you guys enjoyed. Also, we're showing you here now that when you take the butterflap and open the actual flap in the butterflap, it's almost like a little burger, or a little bit, or like kind of like a sandwich, where you could see how nice and soft it is on the inside. And it may look a little bit rough on the exterior, but when you open it up, you could see that whenever I'm holding it with my hands, it's like when you press into it, it's almost like a cloud. It's really delicious, and it does absorb anything that you use with it quite well. You can see also on the other side that when you're pulling it, the cheese is not like ooey gooey cheesy, but you can always fix that by adding a lot more cheese before you put it back into the oven. But we didn't want to overdo it with the cheese. But yeah, that's what it looks like. And you can see here, this is an example of how you would eat it. You can put any other type of meat in there. We just put a regular like cold meat in there, and you can just have it as a simple sandwich or a really quick breakfast. That's what we usually use this for. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Also, don't forget to comment down below what you thought of this video and other videos on our channel. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more videos when we upload. Thank you so much, and have a fantastic week. Bye guys.